Hi, everybody. We are Danny and Mara, and we are so happy today to connect and to share a gift with you. We have a huge gift that we want to share with you today. And this is a gift that I have and that Danny has because of divorces that neither of us wanted, and because of 12 years of infertility, and also Danny experienced infidelity. So we have learned so much through these experiences, and it has just led to the most amazing lessons of our entire lives. And these lessons have been so dear to us that we just felt that we had to share them. They were so transformational to us, so influential in our lives, and just changed every single aspect of our lives. That we just felt like we had to share this information to as many people as possible. And today, we are here sharing this webinar, and this is a huge dream that we've had to get this information out to more people. We even moved to Ecuador and left our dream apartment in Brooklyn so that we could come here and develop our systems and a website and get these webinars and this information out to more people. So thank you. Thank you for joining this class. We want to do everything we can to make it worth it, to make this beautiful for you, and to make it something that you can take into your life right now, today, and begin applying.
Yeah, and you know what? What started out as just a really simple blog. I mean, we started a blog. It turned into Walks in the Park. Walks in the Park soon became retreats. We now host 7-day retreats in Ecuador, 1-day retreats around the U.S., and we do mentoring calls. And you want to know what we start every single one of these things with? What we're going to cover today, which is about identity. It's about learning how to find happiness or peace in life in spite of circumstance, in spite of the behavior of others. It's something that's going to come from within. We're thrilled to offer that to you today. And one of the reasons we want to do that is because we sincerely have love for you. And I know you might think we're just being corny or cheesy or something, and I will totally accept that if that's what you think. But we said it and we meant it, because the reality is we've been thinking about you and about the best ways to help you heal for a very long time. It's on our minds every single day of the week, and our passion is figuring out how to make this stuff come to life for you. And the main reason why is because we didn't used to have the kinds of skills and the things that we're going to talk to you about today. We had to learn them, like Mara said, in the midst of hard stuff, like just life. And what we learned changed everything for us. So what we're sharing with you today comes from absolute experience, and we can't help but have compassion for you for whatever reason brought you here, where you are looking for more wholeness, like a better connection with others, less unnecessary conflict in your relationships, or even just inside yourself. Like, anybody have conflict inside in the script that's in your head? Besides, we believe in you. We're excited for the transformation that lies ahead, and we are confident that at the end of this webinar, you're going to feel more empowered than before. You're not going to feel like as much of a victim. You're going to feel like wellness, no matter what else is going on in your life, is actually within reach. So here's what we are actually going to cover in our time together today. We need to do some major paradigm shifting. And to do that, we're first going to take a look at what you are looking to for worth and wholeness in your life. And we're going to call that the pedestal. Like, in other words, what are you putting on the pedestal that you need to get worth and validation from, okay? Second, we're going to show you how what you have on your pedestal, the things that you're looking to for worth, that is the source of whatever pain and dysfunction you currently feel. And yes, I totally just did the find out at 9 what one thing your child is eating that may be poisoning them. I gave you the scary news headline, but because it's true. what you put on the pedestal is the cause of your dysfunction that you're currently feeling. And third, we're going to show you how what you're placing on the pedestal is actually hurting the people and the relationships that you care about the most. And we want to help you stop that. Now, what we're giving you today is literally just a foundation. It's 45 minutes is all we have. So our main focus here is paradigm shifting, because when you begin there, when you can look at the world through a new set of eyes and at circumstances that you don't love and at the behaviors of other people that may offend you or hurt you, and even just your own weaknesses, when you can look at those differently, that's when you can begin to heal yourself, which then spreads out to your relationships and others.
So we want to just start by telling you all a huge belief that Danny and I have in our lives, and that is that you can be happy and experience peace regardless of your circumstances. And so when I say that, I'm meaning regardless of your current relationship, regardless of a divorce or infidelity or challenges with your family members, regardless of your job situation or financial situation, regardless of your health or attractiveness or all those things that we worry about in life. And I know this is a tall order, my friends. This is a huge thing that we're saying. But Danny and I feel so strongly about this because we experienced it ourselves. We were able to experience peace in the darkest moments of our entire lives. And we're not talking peace after the fact, when things were resolved and when things got better and everything came around. We're talking about in the middle of the dark circumstances. And in fact, some of those moments were the best we've ever had in our entire lives. And so we believe,
Sorry.
We believe that is possible. And we want to give other people hope for themselves. We want them to believe that it's possible in their lives too. It's our story, and we believe that it can be your story as well.
Yeah. So in order to help you get closer to having an experience like that, we're first going to have to show you really what the biggest obstacle is. It's one we all share. Whether you think the pain is coming from a breakup or a challenging family member or like the worst boss ever or just a poor self-image, the truth is those things, they're all just symptoms of one single underlying disease. You and I and Mara and everybody in the world, we spend a lot of time looking for our wholeness from the outside in instead of from the inside out. I want you to hold that in your mind for just a little bit, maybe even say it with me under your breath. I am looking for my wholeness from the outside in instead of the inside out. And that is the root of all the dysfunction that I feel. Now, to show you what that means, we're going to have to dig in a little deep into some other topics before we come back to this idea. But in the process, we are going to shine a lot of light onto whatever it is that you're going through in life right now and give you a foundation for not just overcoming your problems, but thriving in spite of them. So with that, we're going to start by looking into this idea or asking you, where are you getting your worth? What are you looking to fulfill you and to get a sense of validation? And so I want to actually begin with a few questions. I want you to think about some of the things that make you happiest or give you a sense of self-worth. For example, what is it that makes you feel super confident? What is it that you're putting on a pedestal thinking it can or should offer you the validation you seek? And as you're thinking about these things, it's not only what makes you feel good, super happy, super confident, or what you're looking to. One of the other ways that you can kind of pick up on what it might be is, if this thing wasn't there, if it was a person, a relationship, a circumstance, what would cause you the most amount of suffering?
Now, it may not immediately come to you, but I want to give you some ideas, because the thing is, we're usually always getting our worth from an outside source, unless you're totally enlightened, which we hope that you will be very soon.
Like tomorrow.
That's what we're all going for.
Right?
Okay,
Tomorrow, it's going to happen.
But So we're almost always getting our worth from the outside. And here are some ideas. We get our worth from our relationships. I mean, that is a huge one. Whether or not they're loving or good, or whether or not we have them at all. We get our worth from our work, and whether or not it's meaningful or fulfilling, our work or a life's passion or a career. And let me tell you, the life's passion thing is a big one. Danny and I are facing that right now as we're trying to prepare all of this for you, because this is our life's passion, and we can often get our worth from our ability to pull this off because we want it so badly. So other things are education, family relationships, our parents and how they view us, time, physical health or attractiveness, financial security. Oh my gosh, that's a huge one for everybody, I think. Religion or beliefs.
A lot of people get an incredible amount of worth and value out of the religion, and that can be a beautiful thing. But what happens when institutions or leaders fail you? That can also be very difficult. You can begin to feel this sense of struggle and emptiness and absence of the validation that you once got.
So also whether or not we have children, our ability to have children, or how our children are, if we have them, are they well behaved? Are they healthy? Are they happy? All of those things can affect our worth. So other things would be like social media, you guys,
Nobody here, right? I mean, nobody here gets their validation from how many likes or comments they get on a post that they make. I'm sure that doesn't happen.
Do you put something brilliant out, an amazing photo, an amazing phrase, an amazing story, and it's just crickets, like crickets. So, and then you wonder, okay, what's wrong with, am I not good enough? So, okay, we call all of these things our lesser identities. And we say that because too often we are looking to these things for our worth. These are identities that we're trying to have in our lives. And the thing is, those identities will never provide us with the worth we are seeking, ever.
Because here's the problem. When you take a really good, objective look at all of these things, you're going to run into something really quick. You're going to run into the biggest problem with this whole thing, and you're going to go, oh, well, yeah, that's when I've been the least happy. I want you to take a look at whatever you wrote down, and I want you to ask yourself which one of these things that you have up on a pedestal and look to for a source of your validation is actually capable of consistently providing you with worth. Which one? If you're like me and Mara and everybody else that's watching this, your answer is probably not one. Not one. And that's kind of crazy to even say, but not one. Oh, okay. So we have a little parable that we sometimes like to share, an analogy to help drill this into your mind. Because it's really important to understand this. So I'm going to repurpose one of the parables that Jesus gives in his Sermon on the Mount. And at the very end of this most famous sermon, he speaks of a wise man who builds his house upon a rock and a foolish man who builds his house upon sand. So the way that I want to repurpose this is building your self-worth or your sense of happiness or your well-being on any of these lesser identities. It's just like building on sand, because sooner or later in our lives, the winds of change are going to beat down upon those identities, right? The rains of betrayal are going to descend. The floods of unfortunate circumstance, they're going to rise. And if we're looking to our wholeness or for our wholeness from these lesser identities, that sand is going to get washed out from underneath our feet, and we're suddenly going to find ourselves without foundation. These things that we have up on a pedestal, by their very nature, are subject to change and impermanence. They are going to crumble in ways large and small. And whether or not we're able to stand confidently in those times and experience a lived and present peace, that all depends on whether you built your house on sand or on a rock. So you may not be entirely convinced yet that all of these things are sand. So let's just take a quick look at a few of them and show you ways, large and small, in which these things prove to be unreliable, inconsistent in their ability to give you worth 100% of the time. Relationships, that's an easy one. It's as simple as having an argument and somebody not being on their A game. No partner, even if you have the best partner in the world, is on their A game all the time. And they are going to say something rude or snappy or short to you. And that's at the easiest end of things. At the harder end of things, you have things like divorce, betrayal, you have death. Death is ultimately going to take the relationships that you care about the most away from you. So in the end, it is unreliable. Let's take a look at another one, work. On the simplest end of things, you may not enjoy the work that you have, or you may not be able to advance in the way that you'd like. You may have an annoying boss or something like that. And at the worst end of things, is there a job in the world that is so safe that a terrible economy couldn't just rip it right out from underneath you? Okay, so let's look at health. Let's look at health and physical attractiveness. This one's a super easy one. On the shortest or on the easiest end of things, if you take a look at health or physical attractiveness, it just fades with time, period. And we might be able to hang on to the illusion for quite some time that we are going to retain this vitality or, beauty forever, but it will come away from us bit by bit, piece by piece. And at the worst end of things, there is always illness, cancer. There is accidents that might mar your physical form, things that will make you feel like you're no longer yourself. Okay? And maybe let's just take one more look at children, right? So you might be able to have children, and so in that sense, you've got that sense of validation that you were looking to for family. But we all know that life is so unpredictable. Kids are unpredictable. And from small things like maybe they've got minor learning disabilities in their youth, or they're not interested in the same passions that you are, to then you get to the teenage years and you might see like outright rebellion, drug use, things that scare the crap out of you. They're hanging out with the wrong boys or girls or something like that. And even if you pass all those things without a problem, sooner or later, they're going to leave. You might have the best relationship in the world with your kids, but one day they're going to go to college, they're going to get married, they're going to have families of their own, and they're not going to need you the same way. And that's why you hear about this empty nester syndrome, because this is people who have gotten so much validation for so many years from this relationship, and when the children no longer need it as much, they don't even know who they are anymore, right? So these are some of the ways, great and small, in which all of these things that we're looking to prove to be sand, unreliable, right? It is so important to be able to look at our lives, take a look at the things that we're looking to for worth and validation, and at a minimum, make this first distinction that, oh my goodness, what I'm looking to is not capable by its very nature of providing me with the worth, validation, and satisfaction that I'm looking for on a consistent basis.
Okay, so let's move on to big idea number 2. And what we want to talk about is why we are in so much freaking pain when we look to the outside for our sense of self-worth. And I think we all probably can relate to this because we all do it. I just can't imagine a human being not doing this. But it leads to so much destruction. And I wanted to give you a few ideas from my own life, just a few examples. Back in the day, 10 years ago or so, I was looking for my worth in my spouse. This was in my first marriage, and I can tell you I was hanging on to every word that my spouse would share with me. Was he Did he approve of me? Was he attracted to me? Did he like me? Did he want me? Did he enjoy being with me? All of these things, I was just like waiting for positivity. I was just waiting for approval. And my worth was just hanging on the line with all of that stuff. Because the thing is, I was not receiving the positivity that I was seeking. And so I ended up in complete despair because of it. Also, I was looking for my worth in my ability to have kids. I wanted so badly to have a family. All of my friends, all of my sisters, my youngest sister doesn't have a child yet, but pretty much everybody I knew was having babies and living this life and having a family and having this glorious experience. Being a woman and going through that journey. And I so wanted it. I wanted to do that too. And, my worth was suffering because I was not able to have this experience. And it made me feel like, maybe what is my purpose going to be? What is my purpose going to be if I'm not going to be able to be a mother? Am I going to be valuable to my husband, or am I going to, sort of like mess up a lot of the good that I have in my life? And so again, I was in complete despair because I was not getting my worth fulfilled from this thing, from this identity that I was trying to get it from. And so what we do with all of these lesser identities, my friends, is we typically hold them up on that pedestal. And we are doing everything imaginable to keep those identities afloat. We want them to thrive, and we will do anything to keep them thriving, to keep them from crashing, to keep them, just like providing us with the wholeness and the worth that we are seeking. And I can tell you this, but you already know this. There is nothing more exhausting than trying to keep these identities afloat. It is the most exhausting thing we ever do in life. And if you're tired right now in your life, it's probably because you were trying so hard to keep one of those identities afloat, whether it's because of kids or marriage or job or passion. It's what you live and breathe every day. It's what makes your heart pump at night when you're trying to go to sleep because you're thinking about this thing as you're laying on your pillow. It is what drives us and drives us ragged.
Yeah, in fact, I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways in which we exhaust ourselves trying to defend these lesser identities or trying to suck as much validation out of them as possible. There's 4 kind of basic ways that people try to do this. So I'll just go over them really quick and then a little bit more in detail afterwards. The 4 are: we control and manipulate others. Number 2, we yield or we don't set boundaries when we should. 3, we flee, we run away into something. And 4, we destroy, okay? So let's kind of go over each one of these in a little bit more detail so that you can kind of see yourself in them. First one with control and manipulation, when we feel like we're not getting the validation that we want, if we're in a relationship of power in this, like maybe if you're a parent, if you're a boss, or if you feel like you have power in your marriage or relationship, we'll often engage in subtle or overt forms of manipulation in order to get it back. Right? We'll use tone of voice, nagging. We'll exercise authority over something that we have to say, well, this has to happen or you're not getting that, right? We'll use our power to manipulate somebody else into maximizing our validation, into making sure that we feel solid, right? The next one, yield. It's actually the opposite. This is usually something that we do when we are not in a situation or position of power in a relationship. In fact, what we're trying to do is appease somebody else. And we often give ground that we shouldn't. Like, we may not set a healthy boundary because we think, well, if I can just please them enough, if I if I can just do the right thing, be good enough in their eyes, get the right grades, make enough money, or whatever relationship, and you're probably nodding your head, where you're doing this in one of these relationships that you have. It's when we fail to respect ourselves, and in order to minimize threats against our self-worth, or to try to appease somebody else in the hopes that we'll get more self-worth, we yield. And that's pretty dangerous, right? The third one is flee. Now this one, again, this is one of those where we probably do this if we don't feel like we have power in a relationship. Fleeing, it doesn't take you leaving the country, leaving the state. It doesn't take you leaving the home. How many of you, after an argument of some kind, have just kind of retreated into the internet, into Netflix, into, hanging out with friends somewhere, like getting out or away from the situation? That's a classic example of trying to minimize threats to your worth by, in this case, just ignoring them. Whereas with yielding, you're trying to appease somebody to minimize threats. This one, it's like, just get me out of here. I want to be in a safer environment, an environment where I don't even have to think about this. And so we flee into our own little spaces, and we cease connecting with another human being because connecting feels dangerous, right? And I'm sure that you're nodding your head right now and saying, yes, I have totally done that. In fact, I probably just did this like an hour ago, right? So the fourth one, the final one, is destroy. Destroy is probably another one of those ones where maybe we do it if we feel like we have power, because it comes from a place of power. This is when we get really angry with our words. We become hurtful with our words or with our actions or with maybe our physicality. This is where physical abuse would come in. This is one of those last-ditch efforts where somebody is calling upon fury and destruction in order to salvage whatever they've got of their lesser identities, right? They get in fighting mode in order to protect and defend whatever they feel like is slipping through their fingers. So again, we each engage in these 4 different ways in various moments in our lives, depending on the relationship. We all engage in all of them, I'm sure, and we probably have some favorites. And the real hard part about this is one of those reasons why looking outside ourselves is so dangerous, because our most dysfunctional tendencies as a human being arise out of this futile need to get worth outside of ourselves, to get worth from another human being or from a situation. And it causes us to do all these things. And like Mara said, we run ourselves ragged doing, engaging in these dysfunctional behaviors, trying to salvage whatever we can. And so really, there has to be a change. So before we talk about that change, let's hit item number 3, why what you're looking to for your worth is hurting and harming the relationships you care about the most. So I want to give you another one of those images, a word that I want to kind of be seared into your brain so that you can begin this paradigm shifting. As soon as you look to something outside yourself for a sense of your identity and worth, whether it's your intellect, your marriage, a job, looks, the ability to be a parent, here's the danger. Here's the problem. It turns everything else in life, whether it's a circumstance or people, into an object. Even when I say that word, I hope you are already seeing how dangerous this is. It turns it into an object that either satisfies and validates these lesser identities or threatens them. So this is especially troublesome when it comes to human beings and not just circumstances, because when we view another human being as an object to gratify our ego, or an object that we need to protect our ego from, love and compassion and genuine kindness literally go out the window, right? And you've all felt this before. The focus on this external identity causes us to begin to do those 4 things that I just talked about: manipulate, yield, flee, destroy. We do anything we can to maximize our validation, to maximize our ego, or we feel ourselves increasing in resentment and distrust and bitterness against anyone who we think is tearing down that validation. This is a really dangerous thing. It makes everything in the world either an enemy or something to be used. Ugh. Doesn't that just kind of like make your heart sad a little bit when you think about the relationships that you care about? You're turning people into an enemy or something to be used. Now, we've all been there. We're all doing this right now in some aspect of our relationship and in regard to some superficial identity that we value. And again, to reiterate, you cannot truly love something that you are currently viewing as an object, as a means to gratify your ego. So it also makes it so that it's so much more difficult to actually establish or encounter a meaningful peace in life, because you're constantly engaged in this kind of battle. It's like what Mara was describing before with infertility and marriage when she had those on the pedestal. It turned everything else into in her life into this thing, this like, is it helping me feel good or is it not helping me feel good? And the fact of the matter is, because so much in life is inconsistent, it's sand, right? What we were talking about. It makes it so that you're in this never-ending, exhausting battle, and peace becomes pretty much impossible when we're looking outside ourselves. So Mara's going to talk a little bit about this other idea, this other analogy we want to stick in your brain about the idea of a pressure cooker and how we put those that we love in a pressure cooker.
Okay, so let's talk about the pressure cooker. So the pressure cooker is when we are looking to someone else for our sense of happiness. And we do this all day, probably. We do this a lot. We do this to our spouses, our kids, our coworkers, our friends. And we most certainly have had this done to us. If anyone has survived childhood, there is just a 100% chance that you have been in the pressure cooker at some time with your parents. So I can tell you, it absolutely sucks to be in the pressure cooker. This is when someone is, again, putting so much pressure on you. They are letting you know through little ways that their happiness is on the line, that you better perform, you better act in a certain way, you better behave in a certain way, because their happiness is on the line. And so, we communicate this pressure through all kinds of ways. It could be the tone of voice, it could be your body language, it could be the things that you want to sit down and talk about, it could be your facial reaction. So, whatever it is that we're using to tell someone, to let them know that, hey, they better change so that we can be happy again. It's like, let me tell you, that stuff absolutely sucks. And the thing is, or one thing to consider is, we all know it when we're in the pressure cooker. There is no way that someone can hide it if they indeed are looking to another person for their happiness. That feeling of pressure will absolutely be felt. And what happens is, over time, the person in the pressure cooker starts to really hate it. They start to resist it. They start to resent it. They start to push back. And this leads to endless arguments or little moments of friction. And as that pressure builds and builds and builds over time, the person in the pressure cooker is saying, listen, I can't fulfill you. There's nothing I can do. And they literally blow their top. They can just begin to like blow up at a certain point, because they know that no matter what they do, they can't fulfill this other person. And it probably sucks too to feel like, hey, I'm a complete failure. I'm a complete disappointment to this person. And so that feeling also begins to build and build and build.
Right. I mean, a lot of us kind of know what that's like, even just from childhood. The simple examples that, your parents may have done at least one of these things to you. They either put pressure on you to get straight A's or to be excellent at a certain sport or activity, or maybe it was with religion, like they wanted you to believe exactly as they believed or grow in the way.
That is huge, I think, for anyone that has grown up in a religious family.
Yeah, there's these cultural and religious expectations on what your life should look like, and so you're basically tasked with conforming to that specific thing. Physical appearance. I mean, I know a lot of people, their parents, intentionally or unintentionally, are criticizing them on how they look all the time. And if it's not those, then it's just life path and career. They have this idea of what they thought you were going to do or accomplish or be, whether that is a mother, a doctor, a president of the United States of America. Like, parents put pressure on their kids, and we all know what it's like, right? What parent doesn't have some of their identity, some of their worth wrapped up in what their kid does? What parent doesn't see failures in any one of these areas as a personal reflection of who and what they are? And so when that failure comes, what do they try and do? They try and control, manipulate, they try and get the kid back in line so that their personal validation can go back. And like Mara said, that's where all that resentment, pushback, and resistance is bred. The worst part is when you do this to somebody else, when you are looking for your happiness and wholeness in somebody else, you're doing to them the same thing that your parents may have done to you. You are creating in them this pressure that they have to fulfill you. And that does breed resentment, resistance, and that's the last thing you want for a truly beautiful relationship.
So who's with me in wanting to put an end to this cycle? Can you guys just see that this cycle happens because we are looking to another human being for our worth? If we could stop doing that and believe that our worth comes from within, someone could offend us, someone could put us in the pressure cooker, someone could, criticize us, and we can look at them and say, hey, knock yourself out because my worth is not on the line. My worth is not dependent on what you say or do. There is nothing more liberating than being in that seat and being able to have that level of control over your behavior and your words and your actions. And let me tell you, when you offer that to another person, they feel it. Just like they feel the pressure, they feel the lack of pressure.
Ooh, the freedom.
They feel that freedom, that trust, that confidence, and it's love. They feel that love from you,
That's
that
right.
acceptance. They feel acceptance from you. And what that leads to is it allows people to be themselves. It allows them to thrive in their own skin. It allows them to live without fear. We want to help you end this cycle. There's no better thing that you could do for your relationship. This leads to more connection, more vulnerability, more love and tenderness and acceptance in relationships, whether it's your marriage or your family. This is a game changer.
Yeah, I love that Mara talked about the freedom that comes, the exact opposite of all that resistance and resentment that's built up that hampers and just like strangles relationships. But to learn a different way creates a beautiful freedom. And like Mara said, that's what we want to talk about. So let's just go ahead and recap really quick. We have so far talked to you about where you look for your worth, what you are looking to in order to get a sense of validation. Then we talked about why that is causing you all the pain and dysfunction that you currently feel. And finally, third, we showed you how what you're looking to for worth is actually hurting the people that you should be loving the most, okay? So now we want to talk about the solution to all of that. Now we want to go into, well then, okay, what do I do? And this boils down to, we've showed you that looking outside yourself is like looking to a bunch of lesser identities that are incapable of sustaining your worth. So now we want to talk about looking to your highest identity. And that comes from looking from the inside out. And one of the ways that you can kind of see this working its way into all the different wisdom traditions is actually really beautiful. Like, this is the key focus of religion, of philosophy, of the best stuff that you come across in movies and books and literature. And maybe I'll just show you a couple of quick ideas of what these wisdom traditions are driving at. So Buddha, when he's trying to sum up wisdom, he says, what the superior man seeks is inside himself, but what the small man seeks is in others. Christ says, you're crazy if you think that the kingdom of God is going to be found low here or low there, as if it's some place that you can go or a group you can join or be a part of, because the kingdom of God is already within you. It's something you find by looking within. He even says, seek first the kingdom or wholeness or connection, this kind of inside out stuff that we're talking about, and everything else will be added to you. Marcus Aurelius is one of the Stoic philosophers, and he says, outward things cannot touch the soul, not in the least degree, nor have they admission to the soul, nor can they turn or move the soul. But the soul turns and moves itself alone. You ultimately have within you the power to turn and move, to experience wellness all on your own. That's what the answer that we've been driving at this whole time is. So the question, though, is what is that going to look like for people? Because people are going to approach it a little bit differently, but depending on their background and how they were raised and the kind of language that they use. So we want to give you a couple of brief ideas of what looking to a highest identity, what that might actually look and sound like. And so one of the ways that you might see it, if you are somebody who believes in God, your truest identity is probably going to be connected to that. It's going to be connected to the idea of unconditional love, of inherent worth that comes by being connected at your core to the divine. And that's a beautiful thing, and I think that can empower this search for wholeness. But there's also, you gotta go a little bit deeper than that, because there's a lot of people that believe in God or that have some idea, and yet they're still not experiencing wholeness. So you have to figure out what that's going to mean. And one of the ways that you can do that is maybe by taking a look at philosophy, maybe the Buddhist concepts, because one of the things that they suggest that's really powerful is they say, you're not all those external things. You're not the lesser identities. You're not your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your interactions with other people. You're not your personality or characteristics. They say that at your core, what you are is consciousness, and that consciousness, its power lies in the capacity to choose your response to something rather than to have external things like circumstances or people decide for you how you're supposed to respond. Now, this was embodied beautifully in the work by Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and talk about someone who had all of their lesser identities stripped away from them. He lost everything in the World War II, in the concentration camps. He lost his parents, his wife. He lost his life's work that he'd had in a manuscript and a thesis that he'd been preparing, which they took away and pretty much burned. He lost all of his possessions. His clothing was taken from him. His hair is shaved. He even lost his name and was given a number. I mean, talk about losing everything that your lesser identities are often built upon. And what is the one thing he discovered that could not be taken away from him? What did he find he was still left with? The power to choose how he responded to life and to circumstances, and even to the foul treatment that he received in the camps. And the result? He discovered that peace and meaning and contentment could still be found even in the concentration camps. So, to quote Carl Jung, he says, "I am not what has happened to me. I am what I choose to become."
So, this highest identity, you guys, to me, and that's why I started a blog about love, the highest identity is always connected to love. Mm-hmm. If it's not connected to love, what's the point? What's the point of having wholeness if it's not connected to love? What's the point of connecting with the divine if it's not full of love? What's the point of, connecting to your ability to choose if you're not going to be choosing love? So love, to me, is at the core of every single one of us. That is who we are at the core. That is our highest self. That is our highest identity. That is what brings our greatest good to the world. And that is what allows us to change the world, to heal relationships, to heal our families, to heal ourselves. If love is not a part of that equation, we have nothing. And so my highest identity during the days of my transformation, my highest identity was, I just used the words, woman of love. That was my highest identity, woman of love. That is what I wanted to be. That is what I aspire to. That is what I wanted to work on every single day. Instead of waking up every day and living and breathing the lesser identity, I wanted to wake up and live and breathe woman of love. I wanted to figure out how I could respond to my life with love. How could I choose love in my circumstances? How could I choose love as I was going through a divorce? How could I choose love as I was facing more and more years of infertility? How could I choose love for myself when I was, trying to fill whole as a person with or without money, with or without my job? And so this highest identity it became more of who I was. I decided I cared more about being a woman of love than I cared about being a wife or getting a huge bonus or being a mother. And when I made that shift from aligning more with my highest identity instead of the lesser identity, I'm telling you that transformed my life. And it has now affected thousands, maybe millions of people because I've, when you change, you send this ripple out into the world. Yeah. It is affected by every single person that you ever come in contact with. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I want that for all of you. Together, we all can change the world. We can heal the world. Let's all do it. We all have to take part. So this highest identity thing is so huge, you guys. And it's a major shift. It's a big mindset. It's a whole new mindset. You have to wake up every day and say, I care more about being a man or woman of love than I care about, my marriage or my kids or my job. But here's the thing. If you care about all those things, trust me, being a woman of love or a man of love is going to help you to thrive in those areas more than you ever could imagine.
Yeah.
If you keep putting your kids or your relationship or your lack of a relationship or whatever on the pedestal, trust me, you're going to sabotage every one of those areas. Yeah. Your kids are going to hate you. Your relationship is going to sour. Your job's going to be crap. You're going to hate yourself.
Yep.
So by taking the lesser identity off of the pedestal and putting your highest identity up on the pedestal, trust me that it will make every area in your life thrive like you never could imagine. It is literally, to me, the only way to thrive in a marriage, in a job, as parents, in a family, with friends. And making that shift back to woman of love or man of love is what this is all about. This is the work. This is the work of our lives. And if we can get on this bandwagon, you guys, we can heal. I've done it, okay? I've done it. My husband, Danny, has done it. We have done this. And it's so amazing and miraculous that we want to just shout it from the rooftops. We want all of you to get good at doing this. It's possible. This is within our human potential. This is our divine birthright.
So, my friends, I hope that you've been able to see just how important all of this information is. Truly, this is the paradigm shift that can change the way you approach life circumstances, other people, even yourself. This is the kind of shift that helps you actually feel worth, like deep in your bones, no matter what's going on in life. But here's the thing. Just knowing this stuff isn't necessarily going to help you get to the point of real change. It's a fantastic start, but there's a lot more involved. In fact, there's generally 3 stages that people go through in order to have that kind of authentic transformation. The first stage is the belief stage. This is that place where you learn something. You come across a truth that can actually change the way you live. You first have to believe that it's possible, that it also applies to you. You have to accept the information, right? That's mostly what this class has been about. We're showing you concepts. We're letting you discover if what we're saying resonates with you. You're right now deciding whether or not you believe this, whether or not you think it can work for you, or if we're just special or other people have done it or special, right? So belief stage is first. Second is the intellectual stage. Now, this is when you begin to actually take the information someone else has given you and you begin to work it out for yourself. You come to a place where you can describe it using your own words, your own life stories. You've gone beyond beliefs and you've started the intellectual application stage, right? The third stage, this one's super important. This is the experiential stage. Now, this is when you stop simply believing that change is possible and you go beyond simply being able to describe what change might be. This is you actually experiencing something. It's the difference between, looking on a map and plotting your hike and actually walking in the woods for yourself and seeing the beauty of nature firsthand. Now, just to give you an idea, I'd been reading about this kind of stuff for years before I actually made the change to have a deliberate experience living these principles. Now, I told you I read Viktor Frankl's book, and it filled me with the possibility of this kind of stuff that we're talking about. And it was so powerful when I first read it, I decided to read it over and over again for the next 5 years. That first time reading it, that was kind of like the belief stage. Those next 5 times, that's the intellectual stage. I was letting it sink into my body, into my mind, into my bones, into my thoughts. But my journey wasn't complete yet. It's one of those things where I had acquired knowledge, I even knew how to explain it, but I hadn't started truly applying it yet. I kept up a lot of those 4 ways of dysfunction that we talked about earlier in my first marriage, not even realizing that I was manipulating or controlling at times, or maybe I was fleeing and retreating, or just falling into or failing to meaningfully connect and love somebody, right? And why? Because the truth is, I was still looking for someone else to change in order to fulfill me. Or I thought that if I was good enough, I could fulfill them. Now, either one of those is a bad idea, right? And I ended up hurting them and myself in the process. And they were doing the same thing to me. So knowing that these concepts or principles existed didn't suddenly change my behavior. I was just in that belief and intellectual stage. I still hadn't experienced it yet. It took hearing my first wife telling me that she'd been unfaithful for me to realize it was time to put this stuff into practice, that my old ways weren't going to help me navigate the difficult road that was ahead, the very difficult road that was ahead. Now, thank goodness I finally made that decision because it changed everything for me. That first experience was so powerful. It gave me the courage to try it again and again, to come back to those principles and begin experiencing real peace, even when my life totally seemed to crumble around me. And with Mara, it was the exact same way. She was paying to see a mentor every single week who was literally blowing her mind with information, and she's sitting there soaking it all up and letting it change her thoughts and her paradigm. But it wasn't until she accepted a challenge to actually do something about it that the real shift we're talking about here happened for her. It was the key to her beginning to totally thrive in spite of infertility, and then thrive again when a few months later her husband walked out the door and did not return. So, by the way, it's not just about these big items in life, divorce and infidelity and infertility, right? It's about the smaller interactions we have as well. This affects how you and your loved one handle directions while traveling. Please tell me I'm not the only one who's ever had something happen because of that, right? This is the kind of stuff that helps you with that one in-law that you always struggle with, or a recent breakup or job loss, or discovering your kid is using drugs. Like it can be 1,000 really difficult things, or just the really tiny day-to-day stuff. We want you to be prepared for these things, because the reality is this is life. These things are coming in some form or another. Your sandcastle, it's going to start to show signs of weakness sooner or later. And sometimes it's going to get swept out from under your feet all at once. We want you to discover in advance your rock. We want you to experience what it means to stand on that rock, that highest identity, even in the midst of rising tides and blowing winds. We want you to know how to feel secure. We want to help you build up a worth and a wholeness that comes from within before those things happen, so that you're prepared to actually face them with grace, with courage, and most of all, with love. That's how you're going to find peace in the middle of your most troubling times. Now, the last 6 years for me and Mara has been about helping people have that kind of experience. It started with our blog and thousands of comments and email exchanges. And then we started meeting up with people for a walk in Prospect Park. Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And we even had a few people that flew literally across the US to go on that walk. And later it turned into smaller workshops, then one-day events, then 7-day retreats and online mentoring. And all of this was to help people have an experience with inherent worth, tapping into their highest identity. This is our passion. We've hosted dozens of retreats and dozens of events and retreats on 3 different continents. We've mentored hundreds of people, reaching millions through the blog. And we keep seeing people stuck on that belief stage. Or maybe they've made it to the intellectual stage, but still, people keep on coming up to us all the time and saying, "Oh, I love what you've written or what you've said, but I just don't know how to actually make it happen in my life or apply it to my relationships." This is a key piece that's missing for a lot of people. Experience, doing it, having something happen. So this is why Mara and I have created the About Love Masterclass. This is the thing we're super excited to introduce to you, because it lets you dive in. It lets you learn how to have your own experience with inside out wholeness, because there are actual tools and techniques that we've learned and that we can teach you to help you go beyond theory and into experience. We've been through this, and we have guided others through it, and we've been refining the principles for 10 years so that we could teach it to others, because once you have that first experience, you can do it again and again. So I'm just going to tell you about the content so you can see if it's right for you. I honestly think you're going to be super excited. So we've broken this course up into a couple of different modules that go along with these stages of change that I mentioned earlier. So I'm just kind of going to go through each stage, each module. So let's start with belief, and I'll tell you what we've packaged in there. So first, In the belief stage, first thing you're going to get is replay access to this webinar. Now, we told you before that what we shared with you today is the foundation for everything else that we teach. We literally never speak or mentor without starting right here. And so we want to make sure that you can replay, rewind, repeat any part of this to make sure that you understand these concepts and principles. It's super important that you have this for a foundation. Second, we recorded 2 additional hour-long classes for you to make sure that you have the information you need to succeed. So the first class is called Rebooting the Brain. This class, we're going to help you become aware of that script in your head. And you know what I'm talking about. It's the inner dialogue you have that says you're an idiot, that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve better, you're such a screw up, all those kinds of things, right? We want to help you become aware of it and then give you tools to begin challenging that script and replacing it. Replacing it with something much better, much more powerful, something that helps you access peace. Because if you don't change the script in your head, if you can't change the narrative and the way that you're talking to yourself, your experience of life isn't going to change either. Now, this is a huge part of tapping into your highest identity, right? So the second class that we have, it's called Learning to Embrace Your Trials. Now, this class, we're going to help you understand that all those things that you're currently facing in life that you think are preventing you from happiness, they're actually the reason you'll discover what happiness really is. Think about it. You know, we're all so busy going about life trying to look for wholeness from the outside in, and what we really need to do is go from the inside out. So Mara used to think that infertility was the reason she was so unhappy and miserable and unfulfilled. She was trying to get her validation from circumstance instead of from within. But when she saw things correctly, she realized infertility was the very reason she'd learn happiness, the kind that comes from within, the kind that's inherent. And that has been the truth. That's the foundation of everything for Mara, right? So we're going to walk you through a couple of very practical tips and strategies to help you make that same reframing of your perspective. We're going to help you bring some love, some inner peace to that next challenging moment that you face, and develop the muscle memory required to start choosing happiness in your own life, both in small and large ways, over and over and over again. You guys, getting good at this is so necessary. If you don't have the skills to access peace, like within the dirt, the ditch, the gutter of your life, then peace will never truly be yours. Because the truth is, challenges never stop. And so we want to show you how to be at peace in the mud, not when you get married or when you get the job or when your partner treats you the way that you think you should or when your children, whatever, right? We're talking peace in spite of it all. This is where lives change. And so we're so excited about offering you these 2 hour-long classes to help you get that belief stage right? We want to fill you with the right ideas that lead to actual transformation. So the next part of our module is the intellectual stage. Now, I was fortunate enough to be tutored by the great Clayton Christensen. He's a Harvard professor, and he's one of the top consultants and change agents in the entire world, as well as truly one of the most loving and peace-filled human beings that I have ever met in my life. Now, he's worked with tech giants and governments and on and on and on, every industry you can imagine. And I got to learn from him firsthand, and he shared with me a technique he's been using for decades to help people discover the change that they need for themselves, to call it from within rather than him just telling people what to do, right? So we've taken his technique and we've made it our own to help you do the hard work of putting these principles into your own words and planning out how they're actually going to work in your life. So it involves a writing exercise that we have. We've created a writing exercise, some specific questions, as well as some curated reading material that we've selected to help prompt your own thoughts and ideas. because we want you to get right to the root of your current struggles. Not ours, not somebody else's, yours. So we're going to weed that out with this writing exercise, and we're going to help you plot a real path out. Now, the curated reading material that we have, some of it's going to come from blog posts that we've specifically updated and customized for this section of the course. We also have some excerpts from some extremely powerful thought leaders, and we also have brand new content that we haven't featured anywhere else. And in addition to this, I'm actually really excited about this part. I've prepared 3 guided meditations for different parts of this writing exercise to help you get in the right frame of mind. I want to help you access that inner wisdom that is already within you. And honestly, our retreat guests and mentoring clients, they rave about these custom meditations that we've created for our work, and they say it's some of their favorite parts of what we do. Honestly, these meditations are going to help facilitate that experiential zone that is so important to actual change. And in fact, that's what's going to bring us to the next stage, the next module. So our final module is the experiential stage. All of this stuff that we have created, it's to help you have the tools necessary to apply this to the relationships and the things that matter most in life with confidence, right? This is super important because we want to make sure that you don't just stumble into a healing moment and not understand what made it powerful. We're going to help you have a deliberate moment with healing, one that you choose for yourself. And we're going to walk you through it step by step so that you can understand the power that is within you. And you're going to be able to come back to it again and again, following the same principles that we're going to share with you there. When you've done it deliberately, that's when you know you've done it. You've like moved a mountain and discovered just how powerful you are, which is what lets you do it again and again. Nothing fell into your lap. It wasn't an accident. You tapped into your highest identity. There is nothing in this life better than that because it is the foundation of learning what real love and wholeness and happiness is all about. So seriously, are you excited, right? Like, this is awesome. So my friends, if all this masterclass does is help you discover how to actually feel confident in your own skin and experience peace in a tough moment, like real peace in some hard moment, wouldn't that be worth it? If all it did was help you quit putting just one of the people that you love the most in that nasty pressure cooker we talked about of being responsible for your happiness, wouldn't that be worth it? So I want to let you know about our price, and I think you're going to be super excited because this is a killer deal. So when we do our hour-long coaching sessions, we typically charge $150 for each session. And in order to cover this material, like one-on-one, it would probably take us at least between 4, maybe even up to 6 sessions, depending on how quickly things are going. 3 or 4 sessions just to teach the material, and 1 or 2 extra to do all the follow-up and application and problem solving and reviewing of your answers and all that kind of stuff. So that alone, that's between $600 and $900, right? And when we do it in a group setting, people pay anywhere between $400 for our 1-day retreats or $3,000 for our 7-day retreat. And, to be honest, sometimes it's difficult because not everybody can come to the same place or be there at the same time and all that kind of stuff, right? So we really wanted to make a way for this to reach more people. We wanted to make these important concepts like super accessible because our guests and our clients have had astounding success in tackling like crazy hard things. People going through divorce, infertility, infidelity, abuse, miscarriages, just everything. Kids that are totally just going on their own path and it's frustrating, drugs, etc. Right? We've helped people find peace in their circumstances. Like, we're so excited about this. So What we're going to be offering is the class is $147. That's what it's listed at on our site right now. But actually, if you buy within this next limited time, it's only going to be $97. Those of you who know that you need to take that next step, who are ready for change, we want to help you out by giving you some encouragement. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for the next week or the next month to make these changes. We want to help you make that change now, because the truth of the matter is you are worth it, like totally worth it. And so are the people in your life that you care most about. Now, I can understand that one of the possible reservations that somebody has is, okay, $100, how do I know that I'm going to actually be benefited by this? It sounds great. These tools sound wonderful. I want to eliminate literally every barrier to entry for you. If you feel like this is something that is good for you, I don't want you to have to worry if you're going to get your money's worth. So Mara and I are also so happy to offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, right? We don't want you to go into this wondering if you're going to get scammed or something like this. We want you to come out with value. We believe you're going to come out with value, and we are happy to return your money if you decide that this is not what you thought, if it doesn't provide you some of the insights that you were looking for, okay? So literally zero barrier to entry, $97 if you buy it in the next short little while. So all you need to do, if you want to get this, if you're on a desktop or a laptop or something like that, you should see a little icon that's popped up. You can just click on that and you'll get access to the limited time offer for $97. If you're on mobile, you might need to scroll down just a little bit in order to see that same little icon. So go ahead and click on that and you can get the special offer. So one quick testimonial. When we first started preparing this and integrated it with our mentoring clients, the very first person that we used this writing assignment on, 2 days later, she writes us and says, "I'm sending my responses to the writing assignment. I want to thank you again. I literally don't have the words to describe the paradigm shift that I'm experiencing since we talked." She went on to say she's had the best few days she's had in a long time. And a couple days after that, she had her weekly session with her therapist. And he wondered what on earth had gotten into her, because she was just beaming with energy, with optimism, with life. She was somebody else. And we had a follow-up call shortly after that, and she was still thrilled because she just had one of the most vulnerable and connecting moments she'd had with her husband in a long time. She was so excited because she finally knew by experience what it meant to go within for happiness and not put somebody else in the pressure cooker of fulfilling her. So if you want to know why we're doing this, why we've dedicated our lives to sharing this and trying to make it, like creating and hosting this website and all this stuff to make it more accessible, it's because of people like her. It's because of you. We want you to have that same shift. Friends, if this isn't for you right now in your life, I still hope that you've come away with some amazing insights because of today's class. But if it is for you, just $97 and you can get that About Love Masterclass, and we will walk you through having your own experience. Now, just a quick reminder, I'm not going to go through all of it in detail again, but I just want to tell you what's in there. Webinar replay access for this class, 2 additional 1-hour classes that will go deeper into helping you tap into that highest identity, a writing exercise that like a good one, that's going to help you take these concepts and make them your own. And when it's your own, it is so much easier to put into practice instead of going another year just doing the same old, right? 3 guided meditations to help you get in the zone and access that inner wisdom. I'm going to bring it out of you, I promise. Curated reading material to prompt your journey within and discover that highest identity. And finally, that all-important guided challenge to help you have an experience. Remember, all you have to do is click on that link that's popped up in your corner or scroll down on mobile and you can get it.
Well, we just want to close by saying thank you to every single one of you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being in our lives. Thank you for connecting with us. Thank you for doing the work in your own lives to heal and to make this world a more beautiful place.
And for believing that change is actually possible, that you can experience more than you're experiencing right now.
Yeah, there's nothing more rewarding to us than being able to serve you and work with you. Thank you for letting us do that. Thank you for letting us serve you. We desire for you to just have the highest good in your life.
Yeah.
For you to succeed in beautiful ways, for you to be liberated in your family, in your relationship, in your lives, in your dreams, in your goals. And yeah, we just hope that we can join together and be a small piece in your life's journey.
Yeah. And I mean, we said at the very beginning of this, right at the beginning, we said, we love you and we mean it. And I just want to repeat that. We truly do have love for you. We absolutely believe in you and your capacity to change. We have seen this stuff applied and worked in countless people's lives, not just our own, but people have overcome seriously hard stuff because they've learned these simple secrets, these key aspects of discovering happiness from the inside out. So with that, we will sign off and expect to see and hear more from you as you journey towards greater wholeness and greater love. Thank you.